Good evening, everyone. It's Naomi again, and we're into part two of now the story of me taking my baby home. And I ended up having to stay extra because my C section got a little infected. And then they were noticing that my child was starting to lose weight. And so eventually he ended up losing 12 ounces just while in the hospital. So the lessons that I've learned in this process is that trust your mama intuition. It's interesting. Every time they would be wheeling my child down the hall, I knew it was him because he was screaming. I mean, just screaming. And the doctors kept minimizing. Oh, he's just fussy. Oh, he's just got some baby acne. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, and so we were supplementing with formula. Now, the lesson I wish, and it's 10 years later, and I don't know if we've come any farther in the healthcare realm, but it would be nice if they could start to test the babies right at birth for any potential allergies, like especially the milk and the soy, the big ones, right? Um, so, spoiler alert, yeah, we didn't find out until 6 weeks postpartum that he had a milk and soy allergy. So pay attention to those cues. Like, you are very well knowing about your baby, and don't ignore those like mama intuition things that might come up. Um, so we ended up staying a little bit longer, like I said, and then the father at the time had started a new job. And so he decided to go to a Christmas work party, and my mom came to pick me up, and she didn't know where exactly to park. So I'm in still a lot of pain, and I'm on pain pills, and so I had to leave to go get her car and put it where it's supposed to be. I'm not even supposed to be driving, but I did. And then a cousin of ours had an extra car seat because they had twins, and so we took this car seat, and of course, I took it apart, and I washed all of the things, and then the father put it back together. That's another, like, life lesson learned. So, if you don't know, I don't know if they've changed the rules because, again, 10 years ago, but at the time, the nurses could not touch your car seat. They could only tell you if it was right or wrong. And they're not gonna let you leave with your baby unless you yourself have buckled your child in correctly. So, I was like, "Oh, oh my Lanta." So and meanwhile, they're, like, rushing me out the door. At one point, they took us and put us in an antepartum area, so I felt so bad for the mom-to-be who was probably horrified at what was going on, you know, 'cause they weren't letting me leave. And as I was walking down the hall, I saw the surgeon who did my operation. And she's like, "Oh, you're going home." And I'm like, "No, they won't let me leave. My car seat isn't right and they can't help me." So I don't know what she said, but man, all of a sudden, a whole bunch of they took the car seat to the nurse's station. They fixed finagled a bagel, and then I could finally leave with my child. So now I'm in the back seat, and again, the potholes of Salem, Massachusetts. It's not great when you have, abdominal surgery. But we get home, and instead, you see all of these like wonderful pictures of balloons and people getting flowers and all the warm fuzzies, and it was not like that at all. And I just remember getting home, and then I'm like, now what? Now what do I do? And he at least was sleeping, and so the first thing I did was I took a shower in my own shower without having flip-flops on and all the things, and then, I'm so grateful for my aunt who this is another lesson that I would gladly pass on. If you get a baby swing, make sure that that thing can be plugged into the wall and does not require batteries alone, because that swing was a godsend. And then another godsend was in my first video, I talked about right as I was starting the labor, I was changing my bed sheets, thinking as soon as I come home, I'm going to get into my nice clean bed. No, no, that did not happen either. It was so painful. you don't realize the amount of muscles that one needs to get into bed until you have abdominal surgery, and you're like, "Yeah, that's not happening." So, luckily, I had, well, not this rocker, but I had a nice, like, somewhat faux leather, but leather, rocker recliner that swiveled. Oh my god, that was a godsend, and I put that in the nursery, and that is where I slept for quite some time. I would say it was like a 3 to almost a month of me sleeping in that recliner before I could even get into my bed. Um, and another thing, I'll just side note this too, post C-section with all the IV fluids, um, I swelled up a lot. So I had like the Kim Kardashian ankles, Ted stockings, those compression hose. Get yourself maybe a pair. Just have it on hand in case that kind of crops up. So between that and just living in the nursery right with him, I think those are my big takeaways. I do have a lot of compassion and understanding. Not that it's an excuse for shaken baby syndrome, but I will tell you, I wasn't living with the father because my lease wasn't up yet. We didn't move in together until the baby was 3 months old. So I was basically by myself with this screaming child that the doctors kept just brushing off for till I said 6 weeks. I will just say this too: when you get so frustrated and overwhelmed, just put the baby down in the crib or somewhere safe and just take a minute and gather yourself. Because, once you do all the things, like you've changed the baby and you've held the baby and you've rocked the baby, and of course you fed the baby and you've burped the baby and all the things, and nothing is helping, you need to also take a breath and take care of you. And yeah, it's everybody can give you all this advice, and then you hit reality. It's almost like nursing school. Like they train you for a certain thing, and then you get out into the reality of the world and you're like, "Holy crap, it's sink or swim." So, and every baby is a little snowflake, and so it's not going to be cookie cutter. So if you think that you're going to follow like a book that says feed your baby this much every this many hours, your baby's gonna run the show. Just know that and have a level of flexibility. Um, but yeah, once we hit that 6-week mark, and I kept going back to the doctors, and saying, "There's something," and then an idea popped into my head, like, "Let me just Google lactose intolerance in babies," and then it was like, and I had a level of trust in these people because they see babies all the time. Like, I'm a nurse, but I take care of the big people. I didn't know. And then I was very angry. And they were like, "Oh, oh, oh, we're so sorry. Let me get you to a GI specialist." And then once we got in, he's like, "Oh, Naomi, it's so much worse. There's blood in the stool. He's got a full-blown milk and soy allergy." And so we had to play around with a few different formulas before we found the right one. And big shout out to Neocate, because it's such a difference. You can see in the photos, the trending, and he wasn't even smiling. And then once we got on the right formula, and he wasn't in pain and he wasn't throwing up, you know what I mean? I got a brand new baby, and he was sleeping and happier. So, I would keep saying to you, keep listening to yourself. And I didn't say, I didn't stop when they kept telling me no. I just kept going. So sometimes you have to be a very fierce mama bear advocate for your baby, which I'm glad that I was, because, of course, the father's like, "You're crazy," but sometimes mamas are right. Remember that. Okay. So leave a comment below, share what you've learned in your, first days and weeks of being a mom, and maybe your discharge, how that went at home. I'd love to hear. But these are just some of the things that I've learned along the way. And if I can share that and it could be helpful to somebody else, that's what it's all about. So have a great rest of your evening. Take care. Bye-bye until next time.